Question 1. To address the challenge of implementing a new intrusion detection system, IDs, on a critical production server without disrupting essential business operations, which of the following approaches represents the most professional and compliant course of action? Option A. Immediately deploy the IDS in full enforcement mode across all critical servers to ensure maximum protection from the outset. Option B. Install the IDS in monitor-only mode and leave it in that state indefinitely, as this poses no risk of operational disruption. Option C. Deploy the IDS in a phased manner, starting with a monitoring-only mode to assess its impact on system performance and network traffic, with a clearly defined rollback plan in place should issues arise, and then gradually enabling enforcement capabilities. Option D. Temporarily disable other existing security controls, such as firewalls or endpoint protection, to ensure the IDS can be installed and function without any conflicts. The correct answer is C. Deploy the IDS in a phased manner, starting with a monitoring-only mode to assess its impact on system performance and network traffic, with a clearly defined rollback plan in place should issues arise, and then gradually enabling enforcement capabilities. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge in cybersecurity, balancing the need for robust security controls with the operational requirements of a critical business function. The challenge lies in the potential for security measures to disrupt essential services, leading to business impact. A technician must carefully consider the trade-offs, ensuring that security is enhanced without causing unacceptable downtime or data loss. This requires a deep understanding of the system's criticality, the potential impact of security interventions, and the organization's risk tolerance, all within the bounds of applicable regulations. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a phased, controlled deployment of the intrusion detection system, IDs, with a robust rollback plan. This demonstrates best professional practice by prioritizing risk mitigation and operational continuity. Specifically, it aligns with the principles of responsible system deployment and change management, which are implicitly or explicitly required by cybersecurity frameworks and regulations that mandate risk assessment and incident prevention. The phased approach allows for continuous monitoring and validation of the IDS's effectiveness and impact on system performance, minimizing the risk of widespread disruption. The rollback plan ensures that if unforeseen issues arise, the system can be quickly restored to a stable state, adhering to the principle of minimizing operational impact during security enhancements. This methodical approach is crucial for maintaining system integrity and availability, which are often regulatory requirements for data protection and business continuity. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing the IDS in a full, unmonitored deployment without a rollback plan is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It demonstrates a disregard for operational stability and business continuity, potentially violating regulations that require organizations to maintain the availability of critical systems and data. This approach introduces an unacceptable level of risk, as any malfunction or incompatibility could lead to prolonged downtime and data loss, triggering reporting obligations and penalties under data protection laws. Deploying the IDS in a monitor-only mode, without any plan for eventual enforcement or remediation, is also professionally unsound. It avoids immediate disruption. It fails to achieve the intended security objective of actively detecting and potentially blocking threats. This inaction can be considered a failure to implement adequate security measures, which is a direct violation of cybersecurity mandates that require proactive threat management and risk reduction. Organizations are expected to not only identify vulnerabilities, but also to implement controls to mitigate them. Disabling other security controls to accommodate the IDS installation, even temporarily, is a severe breach of professional responsibility and regulatory compliance. This action directly weakens the organization's security posture, creating exploitable gaps that could lead to a data breach. It demonstrates a lack of understanding of layered security principles and a failure to prioritize the overall security of the environment. Such a decision would likely violate regulations requiring the implementation and maintenance of appropriate technical and organizational measures to protect data. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based, phased approach to implementing new security technologies. This involves 1. Thoroughly assessing the potential impact of the new control on existing systems and business operations. 2. Developing a detailed implementation plan that includes testing, monitoring, and a clear rollback strategy. 3. Gaining stakeholder buy-in and communicating the plan effectively to all relevant parties. 4. Executing the implementation in stages with continuous validation at each step. 5. Ensuring that the new control is integrated into the overall security architecture and operational procedures. This systematic process ensures that security enhancements are implemented effectively while minimizing operational disruption and maintaining compliance with regulatory requirements. Question 2. The efficiency study reveals that the current incident response plan for a critical financial services firm operating under U.S. regulations is taking an average of 48 hours to fully contain a data breach. Which of the following strategies would most effectively and compliantly reduce this containment time? Option A. Bypass established communication protocols and directly implement broad, unverified system shutdowns upon initial detection of a potential breach. Option B. Implement a tiered incident response team structure with clearly defined roles and escalation procedures, supported by automated threat intelligence feeds and pre-approved containment actions. Option C. Postpone the review and update of the incident response plan until after a major incident occurs. Option D. Increase the number of personnel assigned to the incident response team without altering existing procedural documentation. Correct answer is B. Implement a tiered incident response team structure with clearly defined roles and escalation procedures, supported by automated threat intelligence feeds and pre-approved containment actions. Explanation. The efficiency study reveals that the current incident response plan for a critical financial services firm operating under U.S. regulations is taking an average of 48 hours to fully contain a data breach. This extended containment period poses significant risks, including potential financial losses, reputational damage, and regulatory penalties under frameworks like the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, GLBA, and the New York Department of Financial Services, NIDFS, Cybersecurity Regulation, 23 NICR 500. The challenge lies in identifying the most effective and compliant method to accelerate this process without introducing new vulnerabilities or violating regulatory mandates. Correct approach involves implementing a tiered incident response team structure with clearly defined roles and escalation procedures, supported by automated threat intelligence feeds and pre-approved containment actions. This strategy directly addresses the identified inefficiency by enabling faster decision-making and execution during a breach. It aligns with regulatory expectations for prompt and effective incident response, minimizing harm and data exposure. Best professional practice dictates a proactive, structured, and technologically augmented approach to incident management, ensuring compliance with the spirit and letter of regulations like GLBA Safeguards Rule, which requires reasonable security measures, including incident response capabilities. An incorrect approach would be to solely rely on increasing the number of personnel involved in the incident response without a clear structure or defined roles. This could lead to confusion, duplicated efforts, and delays, exacerbating the problem and potentially violating the reasonable security mandate by failing to implement an efficient response. Another incorrect approach would be to bypass established communication protocols and directly implement broad, unverified system shutdowns. This could lead to significant business disruption, financial losses, and potential noncompliance with regulations that require a balanced approach to security and business continuity. Furthermore, it could violate data breach notification requirements if systems are shut down without proper assessment of what data might have been compromised. A third incorrect approach would be to postpone the review and update of the incident response plan until after a major incident occurs. This demonstrates a reactive rather than proactive security posture, which is a failure to meet the ongoing obligation to maintain effective cybersecurity measures as mandated by regulations. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes regulatory compliance, operational efficiency, and risk mitigation. This involves 1. Understanding the specific regulatory landscape, e.g., GLBA, NIDFS 23 NICR 500, and their requirements for incident response. 2. Analyzing the root causes of inefficiencies identified in studies like the one presented. 3. Evaluating potential solutions against these regulatory requirements and their impact on operational continuity. 4. Prioritizing solutions that offer a demonstrable improvement in containment time while adhering to established security and privacy principles. 5. Documenting the rationale for chosen solutions and ensuring continuous monitoring and improvement of the incident response process. Question 3. Quality control measures reveal a critical, unpatched vulnerability in a widely used internal application that, if exploited, could lead to a significant breach of sensitive customer data. You are the certified cybersecurity technician who discovered this. What is the most appropriate immediate course of action? Option A. Keep the discovery confidential and monitor the system for any signs of exploitation, hoping it remains undetected. Option B. Report the vulnerability immediately through the established internal incident response channels to your direct supervisor and the security team. Option C. Publicly disclose the vulnerability on a cybersecurity forum to alert other organizations and encourage rapid patching. Option D. Attempt to exploit the vulnerability further to understand its full impact before reporting it. The correct answer is B. Report the vulnerability immediately through the established internal incident response channels to your direct supervisor and the security team. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a significant ethical dilemma for a certified cybersecurity technician. The technician has discovered a vulnerability that, while not actively exploited, could lead to a severe data breach affecting a large number of individuals. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate need to protect sensitive data with the potential repercussions of disclosing the vulnerability, including reputational damage to the organization and potential panic among users. The technician must navigate this situation with integrity, adhering to professional codes of conduct and relevant regulations, while also considering the practical implications of their actions. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a structured, transparent, and compliant reporting process. This aligns with the ethical obligations of a cybersecurity professional to act in the best interest of the organization and its stakeholders, and to uphold the integrity of information systems. Specifically, reporting the vulnerability through established internal channels, such as the Security Incident Response Team or a designated manager, ensures that the issue is addressed systematically and according to the organization's policies. This process allows for a coordinated response, including risk assessment, mitigation planning, and timely remediation, all while maintaining confidentiality until an appropriate disclosure strategy is determined. This approach respects the organization's right to manage its own security posture and to communicate with its users in a controlled manner, thereby minimizing potential harm and maintaining trust. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to immediately disclose the vulnerability publicly without internal notification. This action constitutes a severe breach of professional ethics and potentially violates data protection regulations. It bypasses the organization's established security protocols, denies them the opportunity to remediate the issue before public exposure, and could lead to exploitation by malicious actors, causing significant harm to individuals whose data is compromised. This reckless disclosure undermines the technician's professional responsibility and could result in legal repercussions for both the individual and the organization. Another incorrect approach is to ignore the vulnerability due to fear of negative consequences or a belief that it is not an immediate threat. This inaction is a direct failure to uphold the duty of care expected of a cybersecurity professional. It leaves the organization and its users exposed to significant risk, and if a breach subsequently occurs, the technician could be held accountable for negligence. This approach demonstrates a lack of professional integrity and a failure to prioritize the security and privacy of sensitive information, which is a fundamental ethical and regulatory requirement. A third incorrect approach is to attempt to exploit the vulnerability for personal gain or to sell the information. This is not only a grave ethical violation, but also a criminal act. It directly contravenes all principles of cybersecurity ethics and the legal frameworks designed to protect data and individuals. Such actions would lead to severe legal penalties, professional disqualification, and irreparable damage to one's reputation. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such dilemmas should follow a clear decision-making framework. 1. Identify the ethical and regulatory obligations. Understand the specific duties owed to the organization, its users, and the broader public, as well as any applicable laws and regulations. 2. Assess the risk. Quantify the potential impact of the vulnerability if exploited. 3. Consult internal policies and procedures. Determine the established channels for reporting security incidents and vulnerabilities. 4. Report through appropriate channels. Communicate findings clearly and factually to the designated personnel. 5. Collaborate on a remediation plan. Work with the organization to develop and implement effective solutions. 6. Follow disclosure guidelines. Adhere to the organization's communication strategy regarding the vulnerability and its resolution. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are made responsibly, ethically, and in compliance with all relevant requirements. Question 4. Risk assessment procedures indicate a potential zero-day vulnerability in a critical customer-facing application that could allow unauthorized data exfiltration. The technician has a preliminary understanding of the exploit mechanism, but has not fully confirmed its exploitability or impact. Option A. Ignore the finding as it is not yet fully confirmed and could be a false positive. Option B. Immediately report the potential vulnerability to the CISO and document all findings and steps taken for verification. Option C. Publicly disclose the potential vulnerability on a cybersecurity forum to alert the wider community. Option D. Attempt to exploit the vulnerability to gather more definitive proof of its impact before reporting. The correct answer is B. Immediately report the potential vulnerability to the CISO and document all findings and steps taken for verification. Explanation. This scenario presents a common ethical dilemma in cybersecurity where a technician discovers a potential vulnerability that, if exploited, could have significant financial and reputational consequences for the organization. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate need to report the finding with the potential for causing undue alarm or premature action that might compromise a more thorough investigation. The technician must consider their reporting obligations, the potential impact of the vulnerability, and the established protocols for handling such discoveries. The correct approach involves a systematic and documented process of verification and reporting through established channels. This aligns with best professional practices by ensuring that findings are validated before escalating, thereby preventing the dissemination of unconfirmed information. It also adheres to the principle of responsible disclosure, allowing the organization to address the issue effectively and efficiently. This approach is further supported by the implicit regulatory expectation for due diligence and adherence to internal security policies, which are designed to manage risk responsibly. An incorrect approach would be to immediately disclose the vulnerability to external parties without internal notification. This violates confidentiality agreements and could lead to exploitation by malicious actors, directly contravening the technician's duty to protect the organization's assets. Another incorrect approach is to ignore the finding, which is a dereliction of duty and a failure to uphold the cybersecurity professional's responsibility to identify and mitigate risks. This could result in significant breaches and legal repercussions for the organization. Finally, attempting to exploit the vulnerability, even for testing purposes without explicit authorization, is a severe ethical and legal violation, constituting unauthorized access and potential data theft. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes verification, adherence to established incident response plans, and clear, documented communication through authorized channels. This involves understanding the potential impact of a finding, assessing the urgency, and following the defined escalation path. When in doubt, consulting with a supervisor or a designated security officer is crucial. Question 5. Consider a scenario where, during a penetration test of a client's network, you discover a directory containing highly sensitive personal health information, FI, that is not directly related to the scope of the penetration test. The data appears to be accessible due to a misconfiguration. What is the most appropriate course of action? Option A. Continue with the penetration test as planned, making a note of the PHI's existence but not actively investigating it further, and report it only as a minor finding in the final report. Option B. Analyze the contents of the PHI to understand the full extent of the misconfiguration and its potential impact on data security. Then document your findings in the penetration test report. Option C. Immediately cease accessing the sensitive data, secure it to prevent further unauthorized access, and report the discovery through official channels to the designated privacy officer or legal counsel for guidance on handling and remediation. Option D. Share the location of the PHI with your immediate supervisor and a few trusted colleagues to discuss the best way to handle the situation internally. The correct answer is C. Immediately cease accessing the sensitive data, secure it to prevent further unauthorized access, and report the discovery through official channels to the designated privacy officer or legal counsel for guidance on handling and remediation. Explanation: this scenario presents a significant ethical dilemma for a certified cybersecurity technician, specifically concerning data privacy and the responsible handling of sensitive information discovered during a security assessment. The challenge lies in balancing the duty to report potential vulnerabilities with the obligation to protect the confidentiality of data that, while incidentally discovered, is not directly related to the security assessment's primary objective. The technician must navigate the potential for unauthorized access and the implications of possessing such data. The correct approach prioritizes adherence to established data privacy regulations and organizational policies by immediately ceasing access to the sensitive data, securing it appropriately, and reporting its discovery through official channels to the designated privacy officer or legal counsel. The technician demonstrates a commitment to ethical conduct and regulatory compliance. This method ensures that the data is handled according to legal requirements and organizational procedures, minimizing the risk of misuse or further unauthorized disclosure. It upholds the principle of least privilege and data minimization, fundamental to cybersecurity best practices and privacy laws. An incorrect approach would involve the technician attempting to analyze or utilize the sensitive data for any purpose, even if seemingly for the benefit of the organization or to understand the scope of a potential breach. This action would constitute a violation of data privacy regulations, potentially leading to severe legal penalties and reputational damage for both the individual and the organization. Bypasses established protocols for handling sensitive information and demonstrates a disregard for confidentiality. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the discovery of the sensitive data and continue with the security assessment without reporting it. This failure to disclose a potential privacy violation or a security risk associated with the data could have serious consequences if the data is later compromised or misused. It represents a dereliction of duty and a failure to uphold the technician's responsibility to protect the organization's assets, including sensitive data. A further incorrect approach would be to share the discovered sensitive data with unauthorized personnel, even if they are colleagues within the organization. This unauthorized disclosure breaches confidentiality agreements and privacy laws, creating significant legal and ethical liabilities. It demonstrates a lack of understanding of data handling protocols and the importance of information security. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear understanding of organizational policies, relevant data privacy laws, e.g., GDPR, CCPA, HIPAA, depending on jurisdiction, and ethical codes of conduct. When faced with unexpected sensitive data, the technician should immediately halt any activity that involves accessing or processing it, secure the data to prevent further unauthorized access, and report the discovery through the designated incident response or privacy reporting channels. Escalation to appropriate legal or privacy officers is crucial for determining the correct course of action according to legal and organizational mandates. Question 6. The investigation demonstrates that during a forensic analysis of an employee's workstation for suspected data exfiltration, evidence of unauthorized access to sensitive company financial records was discovered on a shared network drive, which was not part of the initial scope of the investigation. The technician now has access to a broader range of data than initially authorized. Which of the following actions best represents the ethically and legally sound approach for the certified cybersecurity technician to take? Option A. Continue the forensic collection on the shared drive, as the discovery of financial records is relevant to potential company-wide security breaches, and then report the findings. Option B. Immediately cease further forensic collection and report the discovery of the financial records to management and legal counsel, requesting explicit authorization for any expanded data collection and analysis. Option C. Delete the newly discovered evidence of financial records from the forensic image to maintain the original scope of the investigation and avoid potential privacy concerns. Option D. Proceed with analyzing the financial records to understand the full extent of the potential breach, assuming implied consent due to the nature of the discovery. The correct answer is B. Immediately cease further forensic collection and report the discovery of the financial records to management and legal counsel, requesting explicit authorization for any expanded data collection and analysis. Explanation. the investigation demonstrates a common ethical dilemma faced by cybersecurity professionals, balancing the need for thoroughness with the potential for unintended consequences and privacy violations. The challenge lies in determining the appropriate scope of digital forensics when investigating a suspected insider threat, particularly when the evidence might extend beyond the immediate scope of the initial suspicion. Professionals must navigate the legal and ethical boundaries of data access and analysis, ensuring that their actions are justified, proportionate, and compliant with relevant regulations. The correct approach prioritizes a legally sound and ethically defensible methodology. It involves obtaining explicit authorization for expanded data collection based on newly discovered evidence, adhering strictly to established forensic protocols, and minimizing the collection of irrelevant personal data. This aligns with principles of data minimization and purpose limitation, often enshrined in data protection regulations. By seeking and documenting authorization, the professional demonstrates due diligence and respects the privacy rights of individuals, ensuring that the investigation remains within legal and ethical bounds. This approach is crucial for maintaining the integrity of the investigation and the credibility of the cybersecurity team. An incorrect approach that involves unilaterally expanding the scope of the investigation without proper authorization is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This action could violate data privacy laws by accessing and processing personal data beyond the initially defined and approved scope. It also breaches principles of proportionality and necessity, as the expanded collection may not be justified by the initial suspicion. Furthermore, it undermines the trust placed in the cybersecurity professional and the organization, potentially leading to legal repercussions and reputational damage. Another incorrect approach, that of immediately reporting the findings without further verification or seeking clarification on the expanded scope, could also be problematic. While prompt reporting is generally good, doing so without understanding the full context of the expanded data collection or without ensuring its legality and ethicality could lead to premature conclusions or actions based on incomplete or improperly obtained information. This could inadvertently implicate individuals unfairly or lead to an investigation that is compromised from the outset. A professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the organization's incident response plan and relevant legal frameworks. When an investigation uncovers evidence that suggests a broader scope is necessary, the professional should pause, document the new findings, and consult with legal counsel and relevant stakeholders to obtain the necessary authorization before proceeding. This iterative process of assessment, consultation, and authorized action ensures that the investigation remains both effective and compliant. Question 7. Upon reviewing system logs, a certified cybersecurity technician discovers a critical, unpatched vulnerability that, if exploited, could grant unauthorized access to a large volume of sensitive customer financial data. The technician has the technical capability to apply a temporary fix, but doing so would involve accessing and modifying system configurations without explicit prior authorization for this specific action. The technician is also aware that the formal incident response team is currently dealing with another high-priority issue. What is the most appropriate course of action for the technician? Option A. Document the vulnerability and wait for the incident response team to address it when they have capacity, as direct intervention without authorization is not permitted. Option B. Attempt to contact affected customers directly to inform them of the potential risk and the technician's efforts to address it. Option C. Immediately escalate the discovery to the incident response team lead and security management, providing all relevant details and awaiting further instructions. Option D. Apply the temporary fix to the vulnerability directly to mitigate the immediate risk, documenting the action afterward. The correct answer is C. Immediately escalate the discovery to the incident response team lead and security management, providing all relevant details and awaiting further instructions. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the conflict between the immediate need to address a critical security vulnerability and the potential for unauthorized access to sensitive customer data. The technician is in a position of trust, and any action taken must align with established cybersecurity principles and regulatory obligations. The pressure to act quickly must be balanced against the requirement for due diligence and adherence to policy. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves immediately escalating the issue to the designated incident response team and security management. This aligns with best professional practice and regulatory frameworks such as NIST Cybersecurity Framework, CSF, and potentially specific data protection regulations, depending on the implied jurisdiction for the 212-82 exam, which is assumed to be U.S.-based for this example, referencing NIST. Escalation ensures that the incident is handled by individuals with the appropriate authority and expertise to manage the risk, including legal and compliance considerations. It also triggers formal incident response procedures, which are often mandated by regulations to ensure timely and effective mitigation and reporting. This approach prioritizes a controlled and documented response, minimizing the risk of further compromise or regulatory noncompliance. Incorrect approaches analysis. Taking immediate action to patch the vulnerability without authorization or notification to management is an incorrect approach. This bypasses established incident response protocols, potentially leading to unintended consequences or further system instability. It also represents a failure to adhere to organizational policies and could violate data privacy regulations if customer data is accessed or modified without proper oversight. This action demonstrates a lack of understanding of the incident response lifecycle and the importance of chain of command. Attempting to contact the customer directly to inform them of the vulnerability and the potential risk is also an incorrect approach. While transparency is important, direct communication with customers about active security incidents without proper authorization can lead to panic, misinformation, and potential legal liabilities for the organization. It also circumvents the established communication channels for security incidents, which are designed to ensure consistent and accurate messaging. This action could violate data breach notification laws if not handled through the proper channels. Ignoring the vulnerability due to a lack of clear instructions or fear of repercussions is a critically incorrect approach. This demonstrates a failure to uphold professional responsibility and a disregard for the organization's security posture and the protection of its data. It directly contravenes the ethical obligation to protect systems and information, and would likely violate regulatory requirements for proactive security management and incident reporting. This inaction creates significant risk for the organization and its customers. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making process when faced with security incidents. This involves 1. Identifying the incident and its potential impact. 2. Consulting organizational policies and procedures for incident response. 3. Escalating the incident to the appropriate personnel based on severity and scope. 4. Documenting all actions taken and observations. 5. Following established communication protocols. This systematic approach ensures that incidents are managed effectively, compliantly, and with minimal risk to the organization and its stakeholders. Question 8. System analysis indicates a critical security vulnerability has been discovered in a production server containing sensitive customer data. The vulnerability requires an immediate patch, but the standard patching procedure involves a multi-day approval process and testing in a staging environment. The technician has the technical capability to apply the patch directly to the production server without the approval process, which would resolve the vulnerability within hours. However, applying the patch directly carries a small risk of inadvertently exposing some of the sensitive customer data during the expedited process. What is the most appropriate course of action? Option A. Delay patching the server until the full approval process is completed, as deviating from established procedures could create further security risks. Option B. Initiate the standard patching procedure, including obtaining necessary approvals and testing in the staging environment, while simultaneously escalating the urgency of the situation to management and security teams to expedite the process. Option C. Disable certain security features on the server temporarily to gain easier access and apply the patch more quickly, mitigating the risk of data exposure during the expedited process. Option D. Apply the patch directly to the production server immediately to resolve the vulnerability, accepting the small risk of data exposure to prevent a potentially larger security breach. The correct answer is B. Initiate the standard patching procedure, including obtaining necessary approvals and testing in the staging environment, while simultaneously escalating the urgency of the situation to management and security teams to expedite the process. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the immediate need to address a critical security vulnerability and the potential for unauthorized access to sensitive data. The technician is faced with a situation where a rapid fix might inadvertently expose confidential information, necessitating a careful balance between operational security and data privacy. The pressure to resolve the issue quickly, coupled with the potential for significant damage if the vulnerability is exploited, creates a high-stakes environment requiring sound ethical judgment and adherence to established protocols. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a controlled and authorized method for addressing the vulnerability. By following established incident response procedures, which typically involve documenting the issue, assessing the risk, obtaining necessary approvals, and implementing the fix in a secure, isolated environment, the technician ensures that the remediation process itself does not introduce new security risks or violate data privacy regulations. This methodical approach minimizes the likelihood of accidental data exposure and maintains accountability. Adherence to the NIST cybersecurity framework, specifically the respond function, guides this process by emphasizing actions to take once a cybersecurity event is detected, including containment, eradication, and recovery, all while considering the impact on data confidentiality and integrity. An incorrect approach that involves immediately applying a patch without proper authorization or assessment would be professionally unacceptable. This action bypasses established security controls and could lead to unintended consequences, such as system instability or the accidental disclosure of sensitive information. Such a deviation from protocol would violate the principle of least privilege and could be seen as a breach of trust, potentially leading to regulatory penalties if data privacy laws are infringed. Another incorrect approach, such as delaying the patch indefinitely due to fear of causing disruption, would also be professionally unacceptable. This inaction leaves the system vulnerable to exploitation, which could result in a far greater security incident and potential data breach. This failure to act decisively in the face of a known threat constitutes negligence and a dereliction of duty, violating the core tenets of cybersecurity best practices and potentially leading to significant organizational and legal repercussions. Finally, an incorrect approach of attempting to fix the vulnerability by disabling security features to gain easier access would be highly unprofessional. This action directly undermines the security posture of the system, creating a more significant risk than the original vulnerability. It demonstrates a lack of understanding of security principles and a disregard for the organization's security policies and regulatory obligations. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured incident response framework. This includes 1. Identification, recognizing the vulnerability and its potential impact. 2. Containment, taking immediate steps to limit the spread or exploitation of the vulnerability. 3. Eradication, removing the cause of the vulnerability. 4. Recovery, restoring systems to normal operation. 5. Lessons learned, analyzing the incident to improve future responses. Throughout this process, communication with relevant stakeholders, adherence to organizational policies, and compliance with applicable regulations, such as those outlined by NIST for cybersecurity incident handling, are paramount. Question 9. Examination of the data shows a sudden spike in network traffic originating from an external IP address, coupled with unusual system resource utilization on several critical servers. This pattern is highly indicative of a potential security incident, possibly a distributed denial of service (DDoS) attack or a data exfiltration attempt. The immediate pressure is to restore normal operations and prevent further compromise. Which of the following approaches best aligns with established cybersecurity, best practices, and regulatory expectations for incident response? Option A. Immediately isolate the affected servers from the network to prevent further spread or data loss. Initiate logging of all network traffic and system events related to the incident, and then proceed with a detailed forensic analysis to determine the scope and nature of the attack before making any system changes. Option B. Delegate the immediate response to the most senior technician on duty, allowing them to take any necessary actions to restore service, with a verbal debrief to occur at a later, unspecified time. Option C. Halt all network operations indefinitely until a complete manual review of all system logs and configurations can be performed to identify the source of the anomaly, ensuring no potential threat is overlooked. Option D. Proceed with immediate system reboots and patch deployments across all potentially affected servers to quickly restore service, assuming the issue is a common vulnerability, without detailed investigation or documentation of the specific events. Correct answer is A. Immediately isolate the affected servers from the network to prevent further spread or data loss. Initiate logging of all network traffic and system events related to the incident, and then proceed with a detailed forensic analysis to determine the scope and nature of the attack before making any system changes. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cybersecurity operations, balancing the need for rapid incident response with the requirement for thorough, documented process adherence. The pressure to quickly contain a potential breach can lead to shortcuts that compromise long-term security posture and regulatory compliance. The technician must navigate the immediate threat while ensuring that actions taken are justifiable, auditable, and align with established protocols. The challenge lies in recognizing that immediate action, while necessary, must not override the fundamental principles of process integrity and regulatory adherence. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach emphasizes immediate containment and evidence preservation, followed by a structured incident response process that includes documentation and post-incident review. This aligns with the principles of incident response frameworks often mandated or recommended by regulatory bodies. Specifically, it prioritizes actions that mitigate immediate harm, containment, while simultaneously ensuring that the integrity of evidence is maintained for subsequent analysis and reporting. This methodical approach allows for clear understanding of the incident's scope, impact, and root cause, which is crucial for regulatory reporting and future prevention efforts. It reflects best professional practice by demonstrating a commitment to both operational effectiveness and due diligence. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves solely focusing on immediate system restoration without proper documentation or analysis. This fails to meet regulatory requirements for incident reporting and audit trails. It can lead to a recurrence of the incident if the root cause is not identified and addressed. Another incorrect approach is to halt all operations indefinitely pending a full, exhaustive investigation before any containment measures are taken. While thoroughness is important, this can lead to unacceptable business disruption and may not be feasible or effective in containing an active threat. It also fails to demonstrate a proactive and timely response, which can be a regulatory expectation. A third incorrect approach is to rely on ad hoc, undocumented actions taken by individuals without a clear chain of command or approval. This creates significant accountability issues, makes auditing impossible, and can introduce further security risks if actions are not technically sound or are performed without proper authorization. It directly violates principles of good governance and operational security. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach such situations by first activating the established incident response plan. This plan should outline immediate containment steps, evidence preservation techniques, and communication protocols. The decision-making process should involve assessing the severity of the incident, prioritizing actions based on potential impact and regulatory obligations, and ensuring that all actions are logged and justified. A critical step is to involve the appropriate stakeholders, including management and legal counsel if necessary, to ensure alignment with organizational policies and regulatory requirements. The focus should always be on a controlled, documented, and effective response that addresses both the immediate threat and the long-term implications. Question 10. Performance analysis shows that a critical web server is experiencing unusual outbound traffic patterns, indicative of a potential data exfiltration event. The incident response team is under pressure to contain the threat immediately to prevent further data loss. Which of the following actions best balances the urgency of containment with the need for a thorough, auditable response process? Option A. Immediately disconnect the affected server from the network to halt all traffic, and then initiate a detailed forensic investigation to understand the nature and scope of the exfiltration. Option B. Rely on automated firewall rules to block the suspicious outbound IP addresses, assuming this will contain the threat, and proceed with service restoration to minimize downtime. Option C. Begin restoring the web server to a known good backup image without first confirming the full extent of the data compromised or the method of exfiltration. Option D. Isolate the server and immediately begin documenting the incident response steps, including the rationale for each action, before proceeding with deeper forensic analysis and containment verification. The correct answer is A. Immediately disconnect the affected server from the network to halt all traffic, and then initiate a detailed forensic investigation to understand the nature and scope of the exfiltration. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cybersecurity operations, balancing the need for rapid incident response with the requirement for thorough, auditable processes. The pressure to quickly contain a detected threat can lead to shortcuts that compromise long-term security posture and regulatory compliance. The challenge lies in making informed decisions under duress, ensuring that immediate actions do not create greater risks or violate established protocols. The certified cybersecurity technician must navigate the tension between speed and diligence, understanding that both are critical for effective cybersecurity. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach emphasizes documenting the incident response process, including the rationale for each action taken. This aligns with the principles of accountability and auditability, which are fundamental in cybersecurity frameworks and often mandated by regulations. For a certified cybersecurity technician operating under U.S. regulations, as implied by the exam context, assuming a U.S.-centric framework for 212-82 unless otherwise specified. This means adhering to NIST guidelines or similar frameworks that stress documentation for post-incident analysis, continuous improvement, and potential legal or regulatory review. Maintaining a clear, contemporaneous record of decisions and actions ensures that the response was not only effective, but also justifiable and compliant with organizational policies and relevant laws. This practice supports the principle of least privilege and ensures that any deviations from standard operating procedures are understood and approved. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves immediately isolating affected systems without documenting the specific vulnerabilities exploited or the exact scope of the compromise. This failure to document hinders post-incident analysis, making it difficult to identify root causes, prevent recurrence, and demonstrate due diligence to auditors or regulators. It also risks over-isolation, disrupting critical business functions unnecessarily and potentially violating service-level agreements or operational continuity plans. Another incorrect approach is to rely solely on automated tools for containment without human oversight or validation. While automation is crucial for speed, unverified automated actions can lead to unintended consequences, such as data loss or the accidental disruption of essential services. This bypasses the critical human judgment required to assess the full impact of an action, potentially leading to a situation where the fix is worse than the original problem, and failing to meet the standard of care expected in incident response. A third incorrect approach is to prioritize restoring services over understanding the full extent of the breach. While service restoration is a key objective, doing so without a complete understanding of the compromise can allow persistent threats to remain undetected, leading to further breaches or data exfiltration. This haste can violate the principle of thoroughness, which is essential for effective incident response and compliance with data breach notification laws, as it may lead to an incomplete assessment of affected data. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured incident response methodology that integrates speed with thoroughness. This involves 1. Initial assessment and containment. Quickly identify the threat and take immediate steps to limit its spread. 2. Detailed investigation. Thoroughly analyze the incident, identify the root cause, scope, and impact. 3. Documentation. Maintain a comprehensive log of all activities, decisions, and findings throughout the process. 4. Eradication and recovery. Remove the threat and restore systems to normal operation. 5. Post-incident review. Analyze lessons learned to improve future response capabilities and security posture. This systematic approach ensures that immediate actions are informed, justifiable, and compliant, fostering a resilient and trustworthy cybersecurity program. Question 11. The performance metrics show a consistent increase in the average time taken to close security incidents over the past quarter, raising concerns about the efficiency of the incident response process. Option A. Reduce the depth of forensic analysis performed on all security incidents to expedite the closure process. Option B. Publicly reprimand the incident response team lead for failing to meet performance targets. Option C. Conduct a thorough review of the incident response lifecycle, identifying bottlenecks in triage, analysis, containment, eradication, and recovery phases, and propose targeted process improvements based on data from incident logs and team feedback. Option D. Immediately implement mandatory overtime for all incident response team members to clear the backlog and reduce average closure times. The correct answer is C. Conduct a thorough review of the incident response lifecycle, identifying bottlenecks in triage, analysis, containment, eradication, and recovery phases, and propose targeted process improvements based on data from incident logs and team feedback. Explanation. Scenario analysis. The scenario presents a common challenge in cybersecurity operations, a perceived dip in incident response times. This is professionally challenging because it requires a nuanced understanding of performance metrics, the underlying causes of delays, and the potential impact on regulatory compliance and organizational risk. Simply reacting to the numbers without thorough investigation can lead to misallocation of resources, demotivation of staff, and potentially overlooking critical systemic issues. The pressure to demonstrate efficiency can conflict with the need for thoroughness and accuracy in incident handling. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic, data-driven investigation into the root causes of the observed performance changes. This aligns with best professional practices by prioritizing accuracy and effectiveness over immediate, potentially superficial solutions. In the context of U.S. cybersecurity regulations, such as those mandated by NIST frameworks, e.g., NIST Cybersecurity Framework, NIST SB 800-61 Rev. 2, for incident handling, a methodical approach to identifying and addressing performance bottlenecks is essential. This ensures that incident response capabilities remain robust, thereby minimizing potential data breaches and operational disruptions, which are key concerns for regulatory bodies like the SEC, for publicly traded companies and agencies overseeing critical infrastructure. Ethical considerations also demand that the team's efforts are directed towards genuine improvements that enhance security posture, rather than cosmetic changes. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach would be to immediately implement mandatory overtime for the incident response team without understanding the cause of the delay. This represents a regulatory failure by potentially violating labor laws regarding working hours and compensation, and an ethical failure by prioritizing a quick fix over the well-being of the team, which can lead to burnout and decreased effectiveness in the long run. It also fails to address any underlying process inefficiencies. Another incorrect approach would be to reduce the scope of incident investigation to speed up response times. This is a significant regulatory failure, as it directly contravenes requirements for thoroughness in incident handling mandated by various U.S. regulations, e.g., HIPAA for healthcare data breaches, PCI DSS for payment card data. Ethically, it represents a dereliction of duty, as it knowingly compromises the organization's security and the protection of sensitive data. A third incorrect approach would be to blame individual team members for the perceived slowdown without objective evidence. This is an ethical failure, as it fosters a toxic work environment and undermines trust. It is also a professional failure, as it avoids identifying systemic issues within processes or tools that might be contributing to the delays. This approach also fails to comply with any regulatory requirements that mandate a fair and objective performance management system. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a decision-making process that begins with data validation and root cause analysis. When performance metrics indicate a deviation, the first step is to confirm the accuracy of the data and then to investigate the underlying reasons. This involves consulting with the team, reviewing incident logs, analyzing tool performance, and examining the incident response plan itself. The goal is to identify specific areas for improvement, whether they are related to training, tooling, process documentation, or resource allocation. This systematic approach ensures that interventions are targeted, effective, and compliant with relevant regulations and ethical standards. Question 12. Analysis of a cybersecurity technician's response to a detected anomaly indicating a potential exfiltration of sensitive customer data. The technician has access to established incident response playbooks and a system for logging all actions. The technician must decide whether to immediately initiate containment protocols based on the playbook, or to pause and meticulously document every potential step before proceeding, or to improvise a containment strategy based on their immediate understanding of the situation. Option A. Delay initiating containment until a comprehensive post-incident analysis report can be drafted, detailing all potential impacts and mitigation strategies. Option B. Activate the relevant incident response playbook execute the documented containment steps, and ensure all actions are logged in the incident management system for subsequent review and potential playbook refinement. Option C. Pause all containment activities to meticulously document every conceivable step and potential outcome before initiating any action, ensuring absolute theoretical completeness of the plan. Option D. Immediately begin improvising containment measures based on the technician's real-time assessment of the threat, without consulting or updating existing playbooks. The correct answer is B. Activate the relevant incident response playbook, execute the documented containment steps, and ensure all actions are logged in the incident management system for subsequent review and potential playbook refinement. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cybersecurity operations, balancing the need for rapid incident response with the requirement for thorough, documented processes. The pressure to quickly contain a potential data breach can lead to shortcuts that compromise long-term security posture and regulatory compliance. The technician must make a judgment call under duress, where immediate action might seem paramount, but could have significant downstream consequences if not executed within established procedural frameworks. The challenge lies in recognizing that effective incident response is not just about speed, but also about accuracy, completeness, and adherence to established protocols to ensure defensibility and continuous improvement. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach emphasizes the integration of incident response activities into existing, documented processes. This aligns with best practices for process optimization in cybersecurity, which advocate for a structured, repeatable, and auditable approach. By leveraging established playbooks and ensuring all actions are logged, the technician ensures that the response is not only effective in the short term, but also contributes to the organization's overall security maturity. This approach supports regulatory compliance by providing a clear audit trail, demonstrating due diligence, and enabling post-incident analysis for lessons learned. It also minimizes the risk of introducing new vulnerabilities or misconfigurations during the response, as actions are guided by pre-approved procedures. This systematic method is crucial for maintaining a robust security posture and meeting the requirements of frameworks that mandate documented incident response procedures. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach involves improvising a response without consulting or updating existing documentation. This bypasses the established process optimization efforts, leading to inconsistent and potentially ineffective actions. It creates a significant regulatory and ethical failure because it undermines the organization's ability to demonstrate compliance with any mandated incident response frameworks, such as those requiring documented procedures for handling sensitive data. Furthermore, it introduces a high risk of human error and can lead to the introduction of new security gaps that are not properly identified or mitigated. Another incorrect approach is to prioritize speed over thoroughness, leading to incomplete containment or remediation. A rapid response is important. A rushed job that fails to address the root cause or fully eradicate the threat is ultimately detrimental. This approach fails to meet professional standards by not ensuring the integrity of the security posture post-incident. Ethically and regulatorily, this can result in continued exposure of sensitive data or systems, leading to further breaches and potential legal repercussions for the organization. It also prevents effective post-incident analysis, hindering future process optimization. A third incorrect approach is to delay action significantly to ensure every single step is meticulously documented before any containment measures are taken. While documentation is vital, an excessive delay in initiating containment can allow a threat to propagate, causing greater damage. This approach fails to strike a balance between responsiveness and documentation, which is a core tenet of effective incident response. It can lead to regulatory scrutiny for failing to act promptly to protect data and systems, and ethically, it represents a failure to exercise reasonable care in safeguarding organizational assets and sensitive information. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach incident response by first activating the predefined incident response plan. This plan should include clear steps for initial assessment, containment, eradication, and recovery, all of which should be integrated with existing operational processes. The key is to follow the established playbook while simultaneously documenting actions in real time or immediately thereafter. If the playbook is found to be inadequate during an incident, the process optimization aspect comes into play. A note should be made to review and update the playbook post-incident. This iterative approach ensures that the response is both effective and contributes to the continuous improvement of the organization's security operations. Professionals should always ask, does this action align with our documented procedures? And if not, how can we adapt or improve those procedures based on this event? Question 13. Cost-benefit analysis shows that a new automated process for user access provisioning can significantly reduce operational overhead. However, the implementation involves a temporary bypass of a secondary authentication step for a subset of high-privilege accounts during the transition period to expedite onboarding. What is the most prudent approach to adopting this optimization? Option A. Implement the optimized process in phases, with each phase rigorously tested for security implications and compliance before proceeding to the next, and maintain continuous monitoring throughout. Option B. Conduct an extensive theoretical risk assessment of the optimized process, but delay practical security validation until after the full implementation to avoid disrupting the transition timeline. Option C. Prioritize the cost savings by implementing the optimized process without further security reviews, as the projected financial benefits outweigh potential, albeit unquantified, risks. Option D. Immediately implement the full optimized process across all user accounts to realize the cost savings as quickly as possible, assuming the risk of temporary bypass is minimal. Correct answer is A. Implement the optimized process in phases, with each phase rigorously tested for security implications and compliance before proceeding to the next, and maintain continuous monitoring throughout. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cybersecurity where a proposed process optimization, while seemingly beneficial, carries inherent risks that must be carefully weighed against potential gains. Challenge lies in balancing efficiency improvements with the imperative to maintain robust security controls and comply with regulatory mandates. A hasty implementation without thorough risk assessment could lead to significant security vulnerabilities, data breaches, and regulatory penalties, impacting the organization's reputation and financial stability. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a phased implementation of the optimized process, coupled with continuous monitoring and validation. This aligns with best practices in change management and cybersecurity governance, emphasizing a risk-averse and iterative deployment strategy. By introducing changes incrementally and verifying their security impact at each stage, the organization can identify and mitigate potential issues before they escalate. This approach also facilitates compliance with regulatory requirements that often mandate risk assessments, change control procedures, and incident response planning. It demonstrates due diligence and a commitment to maintaining a secure operational environment, which is a cornerstone of professional cybersecurity practice. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing the optimized process immediately and comprehensively without any interim validation or phased rollout represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This approach disregards the principle of least privilege and the need for controlled change, potentially introducing widespread vulnerabilities. It violates the spirit of regulations that require organizations to proactively manage and mitigate cybersecurity risks. Adopting the optimized process only after a lengthy, theoretical risk assessment that does not include practical testing or validation is also problematic. While risk assessment is crucial, it must be complemented by empirical evidence of the process's security posture in a live or simulated environment. Relying solely on theoretical analysis can lead to overlooking real-world attack vectors or operational flaws, thus failing to meet the regulatory obligation of ensuring adequate security measures. Focusing solely on the cost savings of the optimized process without a commensurate evaluation of the security risks and potential compliance implications is a critical failure. This demonstrates a prioritization of financial gain over security and regulatory adherence, which is professionally unacceptable and ethically unsound. Such an approach can lead to severe consequences, including regulatory fines and reputational damage, as it neglects the fundamental duty to protect sensitive data and systems. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured decision-making process that begins with a comprehensive understanding of the proposed optimization's objectives and potential impacts. This involves conducting a thorough risk assessment that considers both technical vulnerabilities and compliance implications. The next step is to develop a phased implementation plan that includes clear validation checkpoints and rollback procedures. Continuous monitoring and post-implementation review are essential to ensure the optimization's ongoing effectiveness and security. This iterative and risk-aware approach ensures that process improvements are achieved without compromising the organization's security posture or regulatory standing. Question 14. Stakeholder feedback indicates that the current incident response process is perceived as overly bureaucratic and time-consuming, leading to delays in remediation and potential exposure. As a certified cybersecurity technician, you are tasked with optimizing this process. Which of the following approaches best balances security effectiveness with operational efficiency and stakeholder satisfaction? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive review of the incident response playbooks, identifying redundant steps, opportunities for automation, and areas where clearer communication protocols can be established, followed by a pilot implementation of proposed changes with key teams. Option B. Focus on increasing the number of mandatory sign-off points in the incident response workflow to ensure greater accountability, even if it extends the overall resolution time. Option C. Immediately implement a new, advanced security orchestration, automation, and response (SOAR) platform to automate all aspects of incident response, overriding existing procedures without prior consultation. Option D. Disregard the feedback as a sign of user resistance to necessary security protocols and maintain the existing incident response process without modification. The correct answer is A. Conduct a comprehensive review of the incident response playbooks, identifying redundant steps, opportunities for automation, and areas where clearer communication protocols can be established, followed by a pilot implementation of proposed changes with key teams. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in cybersecurity operations, balancing the need for robust security controls with the operational efficiency and user experience demanded by stakeholders. The challenge lies in identifying and implementing process optimizations that enhance security posture without introducing undue friction or complexity that could lead to workarounds or reduced compliance. Careful judgment is required to ensure that proposed changes are not only technically sound, but also practically implementable and aligned with organizational objectives and regulatory expectations. The correct approach involves a systematic, data-driven evaluation of existing processes, focusing on identifying bottlenecks and areas of inefficiency that also present security risks. This includes leveraging metrics, incident data, and stakeholder input to pinpoint specific weaknesses. Implementing changes through a phased, iterative approach, with clear communication and pilot testing, ensures that optimizations are effective and well-received. This aligns with best professional practices by prioritizing a risk-based methodology and continuous improvement, which are implicitly or explicitly supported by cybersecurity frameworks and regulatory guidance that emphasize proactive risk management and operational resilience. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on implementing the latest security technology without understanding its impact on existing workflows would be professionally unacceptable. This could lead to misconfigurations, user resistance, and ultimately, a weakened security posture, failing to address the root causes of inefficiency and potential security gaps. Another incorrect approach, such as making broad, sweeping changes based on anecdotal evidence without proper analysis, risks disrupting critical operations and alienating stakeholders, potentially leading to non-compliance with established security policies and procedures. A third incorrect approach, ignoring stakeholder feedback and proceeding with optimizations unilaterally, demonstrates a lack of collaboration and understanding of operational realities, which can undermine the effectiveness of any security initiative and foster an environment of distrust. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the problem from multiple perspectives, including technical, operational, and user experience. This involves gathering comprehensive data, performing thorough risk assessments, and evaluating potential solutions against defined criteria, including security effectiveness, operational impact, and stakeholder acceptance. Prioritizing solutions that offer the greatest security benefit with the least operational disruption and involving relevant stakeholders in the design and implementation phases are key to successful process optimization in cybersecurity. Question 15. Research into a cybersecurity incident reveals that a critical server has been compromised. The immediate priority is to restore service to minimize business disruption. What is the most appropriate initial action for the certified cybersecurity technician to take from a stakeholder perspective, considering potential regulatory and forensic implications? Option A. Create a forensic image of the compromised server storage devices before any other actions are taken, then proceed with containment. Option B. Immediately initiate a full system wipe and rebuild of the compromised server using clean installation media. Option C. Focus solely on restoring the server from the most recent valid backup to bring services back online as quickly as possible. Option D. Perform a quick scan for obvious malware and remove any detected threats, then restart the server. Correct answer is B. Immediately initiate a full system wipe and rebuild of the compromised server using clean installation media. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between the need for rapid incident response and the requirement to maintain data integrity and adhere to legal preservation obligations. The technician must balance immediate containment efforts with the potential need for forensic analysis, which could be compromised by hasty actions. The pressure to restore services quickly can lead to decisions that inadvertently destroy crucial evidence. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes the preservation of potential evidence while initiating containment. This aligns with the principles of digital forensics and incident response, which emphasize a systematic process that includes identification, containment, eradication, and recovery. By isolating the affected systems without altering their state unnecessarily, the technician ensures that valuable forensic data remains intact for potential investigation. This proactive step respects the legal and regulatory requirements that may necessitate evidence preservation for compliance, audits, or legal proceedings, without unduly delaying essential containment. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves immediately wiping and rebuilding affected systems without any form of data preservation or forensic imaging. This action, while seemingly efficient for restoring services, constitutes a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It directly violates principles of evidence preservation, potentially hindering any subsequent investigation into the root cause or scope of the incident. This could lead to noncompliance with data breach notification laws or internal policies that mandate evidence retention. Another incorrect approach is to perform a superficial cleanup of visible malware without documenting the process or preserving system images. This superficial fix might temporarily resolve the immediate issue, but fails to capture the full extent of the compromise or the attacker's methods. Ethically, it represents a lack of due diligence. From a regulatory standpoint, it could lead to a failure to accurately report the incident's impact or to implement appropriate long-term security enhancements, potentially violating cybersecurity frameworks that require thorough incident analysis. A third incorrect approach is to focus solely on restoring services from backups without investigating the compromised systems. While restoring from backups is a critical recovery step, neglecting the analysis of the compromised systems means the underlying vulnerability that allowed the breach remains unaddressed. This is a failure in risk management and can lead to repeat incidents, violating the principle of continuous improvement in cybersecurity and potentially contravening regulations that require remediation of identified vulnerabilities. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a phased approach to incident response. The initial phase should focus on identification and containment, with a strong emphasis on preserving evidence. This involves creating forensic images of affected systems before any significant changes are made. Following containment, a thorough investigation should be conducted to understand the incident's scope, cause, and impact. Only after these steps are completed should eradication and recovery actions be performed, ensuring that the threat is fully removed and systems are restored securely. This methodical process ensures compliance with legal and regulatory obligations while effectively mitigating cybersecurity risks. Question 16. Compliance review shows that during a suspected data exfiltration event, the cybersecurity team immediately initiated network isolation and threat hunting procedures. However, formal notification to the legal department and the CISO was delayed by 48 hours until the technical team had a definitive understanding of the data compromised. What is the most appropriate course of action for the cybersecurity team in this scenario, considering the need for prompt action and regulatory adherence? Option A. Focus exclusively on technical containment and evidence preservation, deferring all stakeholder notifications and formal reporting until the incident is fully resolved and analyzed. Option B. Continue with technical containment and threat hunting, and concurrently initiate the incident response plan's communication protocols to notify the CISO and legal department. Even with preliminary information, Option C. Inform key stakeholders of a potential incident with limited details, emphasizing that full information will be provided only after the technical investigation is complete to avoid premature conclusions. Option D. Immediately halt all containment actions to conduct a full forensic analysis and prepare a comprehensive report before notifying any stakeholders. The correct answer is D. Immediately halt all containment actions to conduct a full forensic analysis and prepare a comprehensive report before notifying any stakeholders. Explanation: scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cybersecurity compliance, balancing the need for rapid incident response with the requirement for thorough documentation and stakeholder communication. The pressure to contain a potential breach quickly can lead to shortcuts in reporting and analysis, which can have significant regulatory and operational repercussions. The challenge lies in making informed decisions under duress, ensuring that immediate actions do not compromise long-term compliance or investigative integrity. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes immediate containment while simultaneously initiating the formal incident reporting process and engaging relevant stakeholders. This aligns with best practices for incident response frameworks, such as NIST SB 800-61, which emphasize timely notification and documentation. From a regulatory perspective, this approach ensures that the organization meets its obligations to report incidents within prescribed timeframes, as mandated by regulations like the SEC's new cybersecurity disclosure rules, if applicable to the exam's jurisdiction. Assuming U.S. for this example. It also fosters transparency and trust with stakeholders, including regulators, customers, and the board, by demonstrating a proactive and controlled response. Incorrect approaches analysis. Delaying formal reporting until the full scope of the incident is understood is a significant regulatory failure. Many regulations have strict timelines for reporting breaches, and waiting for complete certainty can result in missed deadlines and penalties. This approach also risks withholding critical information from those who need it to make informed decisions, potentially exacerbating the impact of the incident. Focusing solely on technical containment without initiating communication or documentation is another failure. While technical response is crucial, it is insufficient on its own. It neglects the legal, ethical, and business implications of the incident. This can lead to a lack of accountability, difficulty in post-incident analysis, and potential non-compliance with reporting requirements. Attempting to downplay the severity of the incident to stakeholders to avoid panic is ethically questionable and can be a regulatory violation if it leads to misleading statements or omissions. Transparency, even when difficult, is generally preferred by regulators and stakeholders. This approach erodes trust and can lead to more severe consequences if the true nature of the incident is later revealed. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such a situation should follow a structured incident response plan that includes clear protocols for immediate actions, communication, and documentation. The decision-making process should involve assessing the potential impact, identifying immediate containment needs, and triggering the appropriate reporting and communication channels concurrently. Prioritizing a balance between speed and thoroughness, guided by regulatory requirements and organizational policy, is essential for effective and compliant incident management. Question 17. The audit findings indicate that a critical server experienced an unexpected outage due to a suspected malware infection. The business unit is urgently requesting the server be restored to its last known good configuration to resume operations immediately. But the cybersecurity technician suspects the good configuration might still contain residual malware or vulnerabilities that were exploited. What is the most appropriate course of action for the technician to ensure both operational continuity and robust security compliance? Option A. Isolate the affected server. Conduct a comprehensive forensic analysis to identify the root cause and extent of the infection, and then rebuild the server from a trusted, clean image after all vulnerabilities are addressed. Option B. Immediately restore the server to its last known good configuration without further security checks, prioritizing the business unit's request for rapid operational recovery. Option C. Restore the server to its last known good configuration, then immediately perform a full vulnerability scan and deploy necessary patches before allowing business operations to resume. Option D. Restore the server to its last known good configuration as requested by the business unit to minimize downtime and address security concerns in a follow-up maintenance window. The correct answer is C. Restore the server to its last known good configuration, then immediately perform a full vulnerability scan and deploy necessary patches before allowing business operations to resume. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the immediate need for operational continuity with the long-term security posture and regulatory compliance. The cybersecurity technician is caught between a business unit's desire to restore functionality quickly and the security team's mandate to ensure that any restoration does not introduce new vulnerabilities or violate established security policies and regulatory requirements. The pressure to resolve the issue rapidly can lead to shortcuts that have significant security and compliance implications. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough risk assessment and remediation process that aligns with established cybersecurity frameworks and regulatory mandates. Specifically, for a U.S.-based organization subject to regulations like NIST Cybersecurity Framework or potentially HIPAA, if health data is involved, or PCI DSS, if payment card data is involved, the technician must ensure that any restored system is patched, configured securely, and scanned for vulnerabilities before being brought back online. This adheres to the principle of least privilege and defense in depth, minimizing the attack surface. The process should also involve documenting all actions taken, including the justification for any deviations from standard procedures, which is crucial for audit trails and compliance reporting. This proactive stance prevents the recurrence of similar incidents and demonstrates due diligence in protecting sensitive data and systems. Incorrect approach is analysis. Restoring the system immediately without a full security assessment and patching would be a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This bypasses critical security controls, potentially exposing the organization to further attacks or data breaches. Depending on the industry and data handled, this could violate specific provisions of regulations like HIPAA failure to implement appropriate safeguards, or PCI DSS failure to maintain a secure network. Demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a disregard for the organization's security posture. Implementing a quick fix that only addresses the immediate symptom without understanding the root cause or assessing for secondary vulnerabilities is also professionally unacceptable. This approach is reactive rather than proactive and fails to strengthen the overall security defenses. It could lead to a false sense of security while underlying weaknesses remain unaddressed, increasing the likelihood of future incidents and potential noncompliance with ongoing security requirements mandated by regulations. Ignoring the security implications entirely and solely focusing on restoring functionality based on the business unit's request is a direct abdication of the technician's cybersecurity responsibilities. This approach prioritizes business convenience over security and compliance, which is a fundamental breach of professional ethics and regulatory obligations. Such an action could lead to severe penalties, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust, all of which are directly contrary to the objectives of cybersecurity regulations. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making process that prioritizes risk management and compliance. This involves 1. Understanding the immediate impact and business need. 2. Assessing the security risks associated with different remediation options. 3. Consulting relevant security policies, procedures, and regulatory requirements. 4. Communicating potential risks and recommended solutions to stakeholders, including management. 5. Implementing the chosen solution with proper documentation and verification. 6. Following up to ensure the long-term effectiveness of the remediation. This systematic approach ensures that security and compliance are integrated into operational recovery, rather than being an afterthought. Question 18. Which approach would be most effective in communicating critical cybersecurity vulnerabilities discovered during a penetration test to the executive leadership team, ensuring their understanding and facilitating timely decision-making for remediation? Option A. Providing a high-level summary that translates technical findings into potential business impacts, such as financial loss, reputational damage, and regulatory noncompliance, with clear, prioritized recommendations. Option B, delaying any communication until a comprehensive, multi-week analysis is completed and a formal, lengthy remediation plan is drafted. Option C, focusing on the number of vulnerabilities found and assuring leadership that the IT department is handling the technical fixes internally without further elaboration. Option D, presenting a detailed technical report outlining all identified vulnerabilities, their CVE scores, and specific exploit methods. The correct answer is D, presenting a detailed technical report outlining all identified vulnerabilities, their CVE scores, and specific exploit methods. Explanation: this scenario presents a common challenge in cybersecurity where technical findings must be communicated to non-technical stakeholders, requiring a balance between accuracy and clarity. Professional challenge lies in translating complex technical vulnerabilities into actionable business risks that resonate with executive leadership, ensuring they understand the potential impact on the organization's objectives and reputation. Careful judgment is required to avoid overwhelming stakeholders with technical jargon while still conveying the severity of the situation. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes clear, concise communication tailored to the audience's understanding. By focusing on the business impact, potential financial losses, regulatory noncompliance, and reputational damage, it directly addresses the concerns of senior management. This aligns with the principles of effective risk management and governance, where technical security measures are understood and supported by business leadership. Specifically, within the U.S. regulatory framework relevant to cybersecurity, such as NIST Cybersecurity Framework Guidance, and potential implications under regulations like HIPAA or SOX, depending on the industry. Demonstrating the business impact of vulnerabilities is crucial for securing necessary resources and buy-in for remediation efforts. This approach fosters a culture of security awareness at the executive level. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on technical details without translating them into business impact fails to engage stakeholders effectively. This can lead to a lack of understanding, underestimation of risks, and insufficient allocation of resources for mitigation, potentially violating the spirit of due diligence expected under various U.S. regulations that mandate risk assessment and management. Another incorrect approach that oversimplifies the findings to the point of downplaying significant risks is also professionally unacceptable. This can create a false sense of security, leaving the organization exposed to threats that were not adequately communicated. This misrepresentation of risk can have serious legal and ethical ramifications, especially if a breach occurs and it's discovered that critical information was withheld or minimized. A further incorrect approach that delays communication until a formal, lengthy report is prepared can be detrimental. In cybersecurity, the speed of threat evolution necessitates timely information sharing. Prolonged delays can mean that vulnerabilities are exploited before they can be addressed, leading to greater damage and potential regulatory penalties for failing to act with reasonable promptness. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve understanding the audience's technical proficiency and business priorities. The cybersecurity professional must act as a bridge between technical realities and business objectives. This involves 1. Identifying the core technical findings, 2. Translating these findings into potential business impacts, financial, operational, reputational, legal/regulatory, 3. Tailoring the communication to the specific stakeholder group, using clear language and relevant examples. 4. Recommending specific, actionable steps for mitigation, linking them back to the business risks. 5. Being prepared to answer questions and provide further clarification as needed. Question 19. The review process indicates that a critical security vulnerability has been identified in a core component of a new product scheduled for immediate release to a large customer base. The development team is pushing for the launch to proceed as planned, citing tight deadlines and market pressures, while the compliance department has expressed concerns about potential data breaches and regulatory repercussions. As a certified cybersecurity technician, what is the most appropriate immediate course of action? Option A. Attempt to implement a quick temporary workaround for the vulnerability without extensive testing to ensure the launch can proceed on time. Option B. Proceed with the product launch as scheduled and immediately begin working on a patch to be deployed within 48 hours of the launch. Option C. Immediately escalate the discovery of the critical vulnerability to senior management and the security lead, providing a detailed risk assessment and recommending a temporary delay of the product launch until the vulnerability is fully remediated and validated. Option D. Inform the development team that the vulnerability is minor and can be addressed in a future update, allowing the launch to proceed without delay. The correct answer is C. Immediately escalate the discovery of the critical vulnerability to senior management and the security lead, providing a detailed risk assessment and recommending a temporary delay of the product launch until the vulnerability is fully remediated and validated. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cybersecurity where a critical vulnerability is discovered shortly before a major product launch. The tension lies between the business imperative to launch on time and the ethical and regulatory obligation to protect customer data and maintain system integrity. The technician faces pressure from multiple stakeholders with competing priorities. The development team eager to launch, the marketing team focused on deadlines, and the compliance team concerned with potential breaches and regulatory penalties. The challenge is to balance these pressures with the technical realities of vulnerability remediation and the stringent requirements of the specified regulatory framework. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves immediately escalating the discovered vulnerability to the appropriate security and management teams, providing a clear assessment of the risk and potential impact, and recommending a delay in the launch until the vulnerability is adequately addressed. This aligns with the core principles of cybersecurity best practices and the regulatory framework for the 212-82 Certified Cybersecurity Technician exam, which emphasizes proactive risk management and the protection of sensitive data. By prioritizing security over immediate launch, the technician upholds their professional responsibility to prevent potential harm to customers and the organization, thereby avoiding regulatory noncompliance and reputational damage. This approach demonstrates a commitment to due diligence and responsible disclosure, which are paramount in maintaining trust and adhering to legal and ethical standards. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to proceed with the launch while planning to patch the vulnerability post-launch. This is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It directly violates the principle of security by design and demonstrates a disregard for customer data protection. Under the relevant regulatory framework, knowingly releasing a product with a critical vulnerability could lead to severe penalties, including fines and legal action, for negligence and failure to implement adequate security measures. Another incorrect approach is to downplay the severity of the vulnerability to avoid delaying the launch. This constitutes a breach of professional integrity and a failure to accurately report risk. It can lead to a false sense of security for stakeholders and ultimately expose the organization and its customers to significant harm. Ethically, it is a dereliction of duty to conceal or misrepresent critical security information. A third incorrect approach is to attempt a quick, untested fix without proper validation. While seemingly proactive, this can introduce new vulnerabilities or fail to fully remediate the original issue, leading to a false sense of security. This approach lacks the rigor required by professional standards and regulatory oversight, which demand thorough testing and validation of security controls before deployment. It can result in a compromised system and potential regulatory noncompliance due to inadequate remediation efforts. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this field must adopt a risk-based decision-making process. This involves 1. Identification, recognizing and accurately assessing the security threat. 2. Assessment, quantifying the potential impact and likelihood of exploitation. 3. Communication, clearly and transparently reporting findings to relevant stakeholders, including management and compliance officers. 4. Recommendation, proposing a course of action that prioritizes security and regulatory compliance, even if it impacts business timelines. 5. Escalation, ensuring that decisions are made at the appropriate level, with full awareness of the risks involved. 6. Documentation, maintaining detailed records of the vulnerability, the assessment, and the decisions made. This structured approach ensures that technical expertise is leveraged to inform strategic decisions, safeguarding both the organization and its customers. Question 20. The analysis reveals that a critical server has been compromised, and the immediate business impact is significant service disruption. While the pressure is high to restore services as quickly as possible, the cybersecurity technician recognizes the importance of a thorough investigation to understand the attack vector and prevent future incidents. What is the most appropriate initial action for the cybersecurity technician to take in this scenario? Adhering strictly to the principles of digital forensics and incident response as expected for the 212-82 Certified Cybersecurity Technician exam. Option A. Create a forensically sound image of the affected server's storage media before any other actions are taken. Option B. Wipe the compromised server and rebuild it from scratch to ensure a clean environment. Option C. Immediately begin restoring services from the latest known good backup without documenting the current state of the compromised server. Option D. Attempt to manually remove any suspicious processes or files identified on the server to restore functionality. Correct answer is A. Create a forensically sound image of the affected server's storage media before any other actions are taken. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between rapid incident response and the need for thorough, legally compliant evidence preservation. The cybersecurity technician is under pressure to restore services quickly, which might tempt them to take shortcuts that could compromise the integrity of the investigation or violate established protocols. The challenge lies in balancing operational demands with the meticulous requirements of digital forensics and regulatory compliance, particularly concerning data handling and reporting. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes the preservation of digital evidence in a forensically sound manner before any remediation or restoration activities commence. This aligns with best practices in incident response and is implicitly supported by regulatory frameworks that mandate accurate record-keeping and evidence integrity for potential legal or compliance audits. By creating a forensic image, the technician ensures that the original state of the affected systems is preserved, allowing for impartial analysis and preventing accidental alteration or destruction of critical data. This methodical approach is crucial for accurate root cause analysis, understanding the scope of the breach, and providing defensible evidence if required by regulatory bodies or for internal investigations. Incorrect approaches analysis. Taking immediate remediation actions without creating a forensic image is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It directly jeopardizes the integrity of potential evidence, making it impossible to conduct a thorough investigation or to prove compliance with data protection regulations. This action could lead to the destruction of crucial logs, configuration files, or malware artifacts, hindering the ability to identify the attack vector, the extent of data compromise, and the responsible parties. Such a failure could result in severe penalties under data breach notification laws and undermine the organization's credibility. Disregarding the incident entirely due to the perceived complexity or lack of immediate impact is another critical failure. Cybersecurity regulations often mandate proactive monitoring and response to security incidents, regardless of their initial perceived severity. Ignoring an incident can lead to a more significant breach later, with greater financial and reputational damage. Ethically, it represents a dereliction of duty to protect organizational assets and sensitive data. Focusing solely on restoring services without any documentation or evidence preservation is also professionally unacceptable. While service restoration is a key objective, it cannot come at the expense of a proper investigation. This approach bypasses the opportunity to learn from the incident, implement necessary security enhancements, and fulfill reporting obligations. It creates a blind spot for future threats and leaves the organization vulnerable to repeat attacks. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured incident response framework that clearly defines phases for preparation, identification, containment, eradication, recovery, and lessons learned. Within this framework, evidence preservation must be an immediate priority during the identification and containment phases. Decision-making should be guided by organizational policies, industry best practices e.g., NIST, SANS, and relevant regulatory requirements. When faced with conflicting priorities, the technician should escalate to management or the incident response lead, clearly articulating the risks associated with deviating from established procedures, particularly concerning evidence integrity and regulatory compliance.